The war began on a morning that looked too peaceful to be real. The twin suns of Arcanus 9 rose over golden dust plains, and the sky burned in shades of fire and silver. The human outpost stood silent, surrounded by sand that shimmered like metal. Captain Raynor thought it would be another quiet patrol. He had no idea that before the day ended, the universe itself would change for him. Raynor walked across the outpost, his armor scratched and dull from old battles. He wasn't afraid of war. He had fought on 5 planets, seen fire rain from the sky, and watched entire cities turn to smoke. But that morning something felt different. The air was heavy, as if holding its breath. Even the machines seemed quiet. Then the alarm screamed. Red lights flashed through the command center. The radar was full of moving signals, too many to count. The communication officer shouted, "Unknown fleet approaching! Not human signature!" Before Raynor could reply, the ground shook. The sky turned black as alien warships cut through the clouds like blades. The invasion had begun. The first blast hit the North Tower. Fire exploded across the base, throwing soldiers and metal into the air. Raynor grabbed his rifle and yelled, "All units to defense positions." He ran through the chaos, smoke and dust stinging his eyes. He saw ships descending, sleek silver, alive, moving like predators. Then he saw them, the aliens. They weren't like any species he had seen before. They were tall, their armor shining with strange blue light, their eyes burning with cold fire. They moved like shadows, fast and silent. And at their front walked a warrior who made everyone freeze. She was unlike any enemy Raynor had faced. Her armor looked grown, not made, smooth and curved, like it had been part of her body since birth. Her skin had a faint glow, a shade between bronze and starlight. Her white braided hair shone even through the dust, and her eyes, sharp, bright, and full of command, met his across the battlefield. For a second, time stopped. Even the gunfire faded. Raynor didn't know why, but something deep inside him whispered that this moment was important, that his life would never be the same again. Then she raised her arm, and her troops attacked. The humans fought back fiercely, but the aliens were faster, stronger, and terrifyingly coordinated. Their weapons fired silent beams that cut through metal and stone. The outpost burned within minutes. Raynor tried to hold the western line, shouting orders and covering his men, but they were being pushed back, step by step. When his rifle overheated, he grabbed a fallen blaster from an alien soldier and fired until it melted in his hands. Still, the tide didn't turn. The humans were surrounded. Then, suddenly, there was silence again. The alien warrior, the same one who led the attack, walked toward him through the smoke. Every step she took left glowing footprints in the dust. Her troops stopped behind her, waiting. She came closer until Raynor could see the reflection of the burning base in her silver eyes. He aimed his last pistol at her. "Stay back," he said. His voice was low, shaking slightly. She didn't answer. Instead, she tilted her head, studying him like something rare and confusing. Her expression wasn't angry. It was curious. When she finally spoke, her voice was smooth and echoing like it came from another world. "Human," she said, "you fight with courage, but you fight for nothing. Your war is lost." Raynor's heart raced. He wanted to hate her, but there was something strange about the way she said it. Not cruel, not proud. Almost like respect. He lowered his gun slightly just for a second, and that was all it took. In a flash, she moved faster than his eyes could follow. She struck his weapon aside and pressed a glowing blade to his throat. He froze, feeling the heat of it against his skin. She leaned closer, her face inches away. "You are not afraid," she said quietly. "Interesting." Raynor stared back at her, chest heaving. "Should I be?" For the first time, she hesitated. Her eyes flickered. Then she gave a small, almost invisible smile, something caught between amusement and confusion. She gestured, and 2 alien soldiers stepped forward. "Take him," she ordered. "He belongs to me." Before Raynor could move, they grabbed him and bound his wrists with metallic cuffs that hummed like energy. As they dragged him toward the alien transport, he looked back one last time. The human base was gone, reduced to fire and smoke. The sky above was full of alien ships, thousands of them. He turned his eyes to the warrior again. She stood watching him, calm and unreadable. And in that moment, surrounded by destruction, Raynor did something insane. He smiled slightly and said, "Nice armor. Brings out your curves." For a heartbeat, everyone around went silent. The alien soldiers looked confused. Even she blinked, her eyes widening just a little. Then something unbelievable happened. She blushed. It was faint, like a shimmer under her bronze skin, but it was real. She turned away quickly, her voice tight. "Move him to the prisoner cage," she said. "Now." As Raynor was led away, he couldn't help but grin despite the pain and smoke. He had just flirted with a terrifying alien warrior, and somehow she blushed, and that was how it all began. Raynor woke up to silence. He was inside a round metal cage, the walls glowing faintly with blue light. The air was cold, dry, and smelled like metal and dust. Outside, through the bars, he saw endless desert stretching under two suns. Strange alien vehicles moved in the distance, leaving trails of sand and light behind them. His wrists still ached from the energy cuffs. His head throbbed from the explosion that had thrown him into unconsciousness. For a moment, he tried to remember how it all ended. The battle, the alien ships, the warrior woman who had taken him prisoner. Then he remembered what he said to her, and her reaction. He laughed quietly to himself. "She actually blushed," he whispered. "Unbelievable!" A nearby guard turned to look at him but said nothing. The aliens were tall and armored, their faces hidden behind smooth helmets. They moved with perfect silence, like machines made of flesh and light. Raynor had fought many enemies, but never ones like these. Hours passed. The sun sank lower, painting the sky in red fire. The alien camp came alive with movement. Shadows walking between glowing tents, drones buzzing through the air, machines repairing damaged weapons. It was a war camp, but it felt almost too clean, too precise. Everything followed rhythm. Everything obeyed. Then the air changed. The guards straightened instantly, lowering their heads. Raynor looked up and saw her. The warrior woman. She walked toward him like a storm wrapped in grace. Her armor shimmered under the dying light, silver and blue, alive with faint lines that pulsed like veins. Her long white braids fell across her shoulders, and her glowing eyes met his with calm strength. Everyone around her stepped aside. Even the air seemed to make room for her presence. Raynor stood inside the cage, staring, not sure if he was supposed to speak. But before he could, she spoke first. "You are awake," she said softly. "Hard to sleep when surrounded by glowing walls," Raynor replied, his voice dry but steady. "Nice cage, by the way." She tilted her head slightly, curious again. "You speak lightly for someone defeated." He shrugged. "I'm alive. That's already a win." A faint smile touched her lips, so small that he almost missed it. She stepped closer, her eyes scanning him carefully. "You fought well. I expected fear. Instead, you smiled. That's just how we humans deal with death," he said. "We joke about it." She looked at him for a long moment, her gaze sharp and thoughtful. "Strange creatures, humans," she murmured. "You laugh when you should kneel." Raynor leaned closer to the bars, meeting her eyes. "And you blush when you should kill." The words hit her like a pulse of energy. Her glowing eyes widened just slightly, then narrowed again. A faint warmth crossed her bronze skin, barely visible but there. She quickly turned her head away. "You speak too much," she said quietly. "And you think too much," he answered. The nearby guards shifted nervously, unsure whether to step in, but she raised a hand, stopping them without looking. She walked closer again until the space between them was only inches. The cage's light reflected in her eyes like small stars. "Do you even understand who I am, human?" she asked. "No," Raynor said simply. "But you seem important. Everyone stands straighter when you walk by." Her armor glowed softly as she spoke. "I am Commander Serath of the Arken Dominion. I lead the 7th Legion, your destroyers. You killed 30 of my soldiers today." Raynor held her gaze. "They tried to kill me first," her voice stayed calm. "That is war," he nodded. "Then maybe we're not so different." For the first time, she didn't reply. Instead, she looked at him with a strange expression, something between anger, curiosity, and respect. She touched a small crystal device on her arm, and the cage lights dimmed. "You will be moved to my ship soon," she said. "The High Council wants to see a live human. They study your kind." "Study," he repeated slowly. "Sounds like a fun word for experiment." She paused. "You will not be harmed if you cooperate." He smiled faintly. "And if I don't?" Her eyes flickered. "Then I decide what happens." Raynor looked at her again, studying the faint blush still glowing under her bronze skin. "Then I'll take my chances with you, Commander." For a heartbeat, silence filled the air. Her lips parted as if to speak, but she said nothing. Then she turned sharply and walked away, her armor reflecting the twin suns like living metal. As she disappeared into the rows of alien tents, one of the guards whispered something in their language, something Raynor didn't understand, but the tone was clear. They feared her. Raynor sat down again, his mind racing. The camp buzzed softly around him, filled with alien technology and quiet voices. But his thoughts were somewhere else. He thought of the way she looked at him, the hesitation in her voice, the small blush she tried to hide. He didn't know what it meant, but he knew one thing for sure. She wasn't like any enemy he'd met before. He didn't know yet that this same alien warrior, Commander Serath, would one day risk everything for him. But for now he was just a human prisoner, locked in a cage under alien suns, and already part of something far bigger than a war. The transport ship rose from the sand like a silent beast, its engines glowing pale blue under the night sky. The desert faded away as Raynor sat in the back, hands bound, surrounded by alien guards. Through the small viewing window, he saw stars stretch into long white lines. They were leaving the planet. He should have been afraid. He was a prisoner of war, being taken to an alien world where no human had ever returned. But instead his mind kept replaying the image of Commander Serath's face. Calm, strong, and somehow human for a moment when she blushed. Hours passed in silence. The aliens didn't speak much. Their discipline was perfect, like they didn't know how to relax. Raynor leaned back against the cold metal wall and muttered, "Guess I'm not getting the window seat." One of the guards tilted his head, not understanding, and Raynor smiled faintly. "Yeah, didn't think you'd get the joke." When the ship landed, the air changed. A strange low hum filled the space, and the doors opened to reveal something incredible. A city that floated above black clouds. Silver towers glowed like stars connected by bridges of light. Giant ships moved between them silently, like birds made of crystal. The view was so unreal that for a moment, Raynor forgot he was a prisoner. He was led through long hallways filled with soft blue light and strange symbols on the walls. Every alien who saw him stopped and stared, some with curiosity, others with disgust. Humans were clearly not welcome here. Finally, the guard stopped in front of a large door that opened with a hiss. Commander Serath stood inside waiting. Her armor was gone. She wore something simpler, dark metallic fabric that looked both soft and strong. Her long white braids hung over her shoulders, and her eyes glowed faintly in the dim room. She looked less like a warrior and more like a person. "Leave us," she said. The guards bowed and exited, the door closing behind them. Raynor stood silently, still cuffed. Serath walked closer, her voice calm but firm. "You are safe here. No one will harm you," he raised an eyebrow. "Safe? I'm in a cage on a ship full of people who hate my species." "You are not in a cage anymore," she said. She touched a crystal on her wrist, and the cuffs unlocked with a faint hum. The metal fell away from his wrists. Raynor rubbed his hands slowly. "What's the catch?" Her gaze didn't move. "No catch. I want to understand you." "Understand me?" He laughed lightly. "You invaded my world, burned my base, and now you want to talk?" Her eyes softened just a little. "This war began long before you or I were born. I follow orders, human, just as you did." He looked at her carefully. "You don't sound like someone who enjoys following orders." That made her pause. She turned away, walking to the large window that showed the endless alien city below. The light reflected on her skin, making her seem almost unreal. "My world was dying," she said softly. "Our people believed we needed new lands, new resources. Your world was in the path." Raynor's voice lowered. "So you attacked first?" She didn't answer immediately. "We attacked to survive," she said finally. "But survival has a price. One I am not sure was worth paying." Raynor watched her in silence. There was something fragile in her voice, and on a crack behind the strength, he stepped closer. "You don't sound like a monster." She turned her head slightly, her glowing eyes meeting his. "And you don't act like prey." They stood there, looking at each other. Two enemies who suddenly didn't feel like enemies at all. Serath finally broke the silence. "The High Council will question you tomorrow. They want to know how humans fight, how you think. They believe you are dangerous because of your emotions." Raynor smiled faintly. "Emotions? You mean the part where I said you looked good in armor?" Her face froze. That same faint shimmer of warmth spread under her bronze skin again. She quickly turned away. "You should rest," she said sharply. "You will need your strength." Raynor laughed softly. You keep blushing every time I talk about you. Doesn't help your scary reputation. She looked back at him, eyes narrowed. But there was something behind her glare, something alive. You are bold, human, he smiled. That's what got me into this mess. Her lips curved slightly and not quite a smile, but close. Then she pressed her palm to a control panel, and a small door opened on the side of the chamber. Inside was a simple sleeping pod with soft blue light. You will stay here, she said. Food will be provided. You are not a prisoner, but do not try to escape. Raynor nodded slowly. You're the boss, Commander. She gave him one last look, unreadable, distant, yet strangely warm, and turned to leave. As the door slid shut behind her, Raynor exhaled slowly. He sat on the edge of the sleeping pod, looking out at the city through the glass wall. He couldn't stop thinking about her voice, her eyes, and that moment when she spoke of regret. There was something more behind her armor, something human, or maybe something even deeper. He didn't know it yet. But the secret she carried would soon decide the fate of both their worlds. And somewhere deep inside that alien fortress, Commander Serath stood alone, touching the spot on her skin where she had felt that strange warmth earlier. For the first time in her life, she didn't understand her own heart. The next morning began with the soft hum of alien engines. Raynor woke inside his glass room, the light from the alien city spilling across the floor like water. He stretched slowly, feeling the stiffness in his arms from the cuffs he once wore. For the first time since the invasion, no one shouted orders at him. No alarms, no gunfire, only silence. He sat by the window watching the endless silver towers outside. Drones floated past the glass, scanning, measuring, always working. The Arken world looked peaceful on the surface, but even peace here felt like control. Everything followed rules, perfect and cold. A door slid open behind him. Commander Serath entered, dressed again in her shining armor. Her face looked calm, almost unreadable, but her eyes carried the same quiet intensity he remembered. You have slept well, she said. Better than I expected, Raynor answered. Didn't think your people gave prisoners breakfast. You are not a prisoner, she said. You are a guest under observation, he smiled faintly. That's just a polite way to say prisoner. Her lips curved slightly, almost a hidden smile, but she turned away before he could see it clearly. Come, the council will meet you soon. They have questions. 2 guards waited outside. They walked through long corridors filled with blue light and tall windows, showing the clouds below the floating city. The architecture was smooth, organic, like it had grown instead of being built. Everywhere Raynor looked, he saw symbols glowing softly on the walls. Language or code, maybe both. Finally, they reached a massive round hall. At its center hovered a circular platform where 6 alien elders sat, their eyes bright with cold fire. Their armor was ancient, carved with markings that seemed alive. When Serath and Raynor entered, the hall fell silent. One of the elders spoke first. Commander Serath, you bring a human specimen. State your reason. Raynor didn't like the word specimen. He opened his mouth to reply, but Serath spoke before he could. This human fought with courage and intelligence. He deserves to be heard, not dissected. A low murmur passed through the council. One elder leaned forward. You question our command, Commander? Serath's voice stayed calm but firm. I question the usefulness of cruelty. Understanding them will help us win this war. The elder's eyes narrowed. Emotions make you weak, Serath. Raynor watched as the tension rose. Serath stood tall, unflinching, her voice sharp like steel. If compassion is weakness, then perhaps weakness is what we need. The hall went silent again. The elders whispered among themselves in a language Raynor couldn't follow. Finally, one raised a hand. Very well. The human will remain under your care, but remember your duty, Commander. Do not forget where your loyalty lies. The meeting ended. As they left the hall, Raynor walked beside her quietly. He could feel the pressure in the air, the kind of silence that follows a dangerous argument. Thanks for that, he said softly. Didn't expect you to stand up for me. She didn't look at him. They see you as an animal. I see a soldier. High praise from someone who conquered my base. She glanced at him then, eyes faintly glowing. Do you ever stop talking? Not really, he said, smiling. It's a human thing. Helps us feel less alone. They entered a quiet chamber filled with strange plants glowing softly in the dark. The air smelled clean, alive. Serath touched one of the plants gently as if remembering something. This place is my refuge, she said quietly. Before the war, our people lived in forests filled with these. Now only a few remain. Raynor looked at her, realizing for the first time how tired she looked beneath her armor. You miss it, he said. She nodded slowly. War takes everything, even memories. He stepped closer, his voice gentle. Then why keep fighting? She hesitated. Because if I stop, everything I lost becomes meaningless. Raynor said nothing. The silence between them felt heavy but not cold. It was the kind of silence that held truth. Then, a soft alarm sounded somewhere distant. Serath's eyes hardened again. She touched a crystal on her wrist, listening. There has been a breach in the lower sectors. Human survivors from your planet were captured, and one tried to escape. Raynor froze. Survivors, my team? Perhaps, she said. I will find out. I'm coming with you. She looked at him sharply. No, it's too dangerous. He stepped closer. They're my people. If they're alive, I have to try. For a moment, her expression softened. Then she sighed. Very well. Stay close. Do not make me regret this. They moved quickly through the corridors, alarms echoing around them. The lower sectors were darker, filled with shadows and smoke. Alien guards rushed past. Serath's armor glowed faintly, lighting the path ahead. When they reached the security hall, Raynor saw it. A group of human prisoners in cages, weak but alive. His heart pounded. But before he could move, Serath raised her hand to stop him. Her eyes scanned the room carefully. Wait, she whispered. Something is wrong. The lights flickered. A blast shook the wall behind them. Smoke filled the air, and from the shadows came alien soldiers wearing different armor, darker, more brutal. Assassins, Serath said quietly. They're here for me. Before Raynor could respond, one of the attackers fired. The beam struck near them, and she pushed him to the ground, her armor absorbing the hit. She turned, her blade igniting with a brilliant blue light, and faced the attackers head-on. Raynor stared in shock as she moved, fast, graceful, deadly. The same woman who once captured him was now fighting to protect him. When the last enemy fell, the hall was silent again. Serath's breathing was heavy, her armor scarred with glowing cracks. Raynor stood slowly, eyes wide. You saved me. She looked at him, her face unreadable. Don't thank me yet. The council will not forgive what I've done. He stepped closer. Then why did you do it? Her voice was quiet, almost a whisper. Because I don't want to see another human die. Their eyes met, and in that moment something changed between them. Something neither could name, but both could feel. The alien night was quiet. The floating city shimmered above the dark clouds like a dream made of silver light. Inside the command tower, the world felt still, but danger moved silently beneath the surface. Raynor sat in his room, staring out at the alien skyline. He could still hear the sound of blasters, still see Serath's figure moving through the smoke as she fought to protect him. Every moment since then played in his mind again and again. He had seen many warriors in his life, brave ones, cold ones, cruel ones, but none like her. He didn't understand why she saved him. Maybe she didn't either. The door opened with a soft hiss. Serath entered, her armor damaged, faint cracks glowing across her shoulder. She looked exhausted, her usual calm replaced with quiet pain. You should rest, Raynor said softly. That blast almost hit you. She gave him a small look. You worry too much for someone in enemy territory. He smiled faintly. You risked your life for me. That kind of makes you part of my side now. Her eyes glowed in the dim light. Do not mistake mercy for alliance, human. But her voice didn't sound angry. It sounded tired, conflicted. Raynor stood slowly. Then why did you save me? You could have let them finish me. She turned away, looking out the window where lightning flashed inside the clouds. Because I was tired of watching death. He waited quietly, letting her speak. She continued after a pause, her tone quieter now. When I was young, I believed our war was noble, that we were saving our people. But now I see the truth. The High Council wants control, not peace. Raynor stepped closer. And what do you want? She turned to him slowly. I want to stop killing. I want to believe that something different is possible. For a moment, the air between them felt heavy but warm. Two enemies standing side by side, connected by exhaustion and hope. Before either could speak again, a sudden alarm echoed through the walls. The lights turned red. A robotic voice spoke rapidly in the alien language. Serath's expression changed instantly, alert, sharp, ready. "They know," she whispered. Raynor frowned. "Know what?" "That I disobeyed orders. That I protected you." She touched her wrist device, scanning incoming signals. "Security teams are coming. They will arrest me." "And kill you," Raynor's heart pounded. "Then we have to run." Her eyes met his. "You don't understand. There is nowhere to run. This is their world." He grabbed her shoulder firmly. "Then we make our own way out. Together." She looked at him, surprised by the conviction in his voice. For a moment she saw no fear in his eyes, only determination. That human spark again. She finally nodded. "Follow me." They moved quickly through the corridors, keeping to the shadows. The city outside pulsed with light as sirens echoed from above. Flying drones scanned every level, searching. Serath led him through maintenance tunnels. Narrow metallic corridors lit by dim blue strips. She moved fast, silent as a shadow, but Raynor could hear the tension in her breathing. At one junction they stopped to avoid a patrol. 2 alien soldiers passed by talking in low voices. Raynor couldn't understand their words, but he caught one. "Traitor." When the patrol left, he looked at her. "They're calling you a traitor." She nodded. "They are right," he frowned. "No, they're wrong. You're the only one here doing the right thing." She looked at him for a long time, her face calm but her eyes full of something she couldn't hide. Guilt, maybe, or longing. "You speak as if you know what is right." "Human," she said softly. "I don't," he replied, "but I know kindness when I see it." They reached an airlock chamber near the edge of the shipyard. Beyond it, the open sky stretched endlessly, lit by electric storms. Serath pressed a sequence on her wrist and the door unlocked with a hiss. "Where does this go?" Raynor asked. She looked out at the platform ahead. "Down to the lower sky levels. Old transport pods. If we reach them, we can hide until I think of something." Raynor smirked. "You're the commander, remember? Thinking is your job." For the first time in hours, she smiled. A real gentle smile. "You are impossible. Humans usually are," he said. But before they could move, heavy footsteps echoed behind them. The metal door slammed open. A squad of armored soldiers entered, weapons drawn. At their head stood an elder, tall, pale, with eyes like cold fire. "Commander Serath," he said. "By order of the High Council, you are under arrest for treason." Serath stepped forward calmly. "And the human?" The elder's lips curled slightly. "The human dies." Raynor reached for the fallen blaster on the floor. "Guess we're doing this the hard way." Serath's armor lit up, glowing brighter than ever before. "No," she said quietly. "We're doing this my way." And in a burst of light and motion she charged, her blade slicing through the air, her movements fluid and fierce. Raynor covered her from behind, firing as alien soldiers filled the chamber with energy bolts. The battle was short but brutal. When it ended, the floor was covered in smoke and sparks. The elder lay defeated, the others retreating. Serath stood breathing hard, her armor cracked and glowing, her eyes blazing like twin suns. Raynor stepped closer, his voice low. "You just fought your own people to save me." She looked at him quietly. "I didn't do it for you, Raynor. I did it because something inside me refused to obey anymore." He nodded slowly. "Whatever it is, don't lose it." She turned toward the open sky beyond the airlock, wind whipping her white braids. "We have little time," she said. "They will come again stronger. If we are to survive, we must trust each other." Raynor stepped beside her. "Then let's survive." And together they jumped into the storm. The wind roared around them as they fell through the storm. Lightning tore across the clouds, painting the sky in blinding flashes of blue and white. Commander Serath gripped Raynor tightly as their descent pod cut through the chaos. The alarm screamed, the metal shook, and the entire sky burned with fire and energy. Below them, the lower levels of the alien world glowed faintly. Endless machinery, broken towers, and rivers of molten light. The pod hit the surface hard, sliding across the metal ground before crashing into a wall of dust and sparks. When everything went quiet again, Raynor opened his eyes slowly. His head throbbed. The pod's door had been torn open. Outside, smoke drifted in the air, and far above, the floating city shone like a distant sun. Serath pulled herself up, her armor damaged and cracked. A faint blue glow bled through the fractures. Still, she stood strong. "Are you hurt?" she asked, Just my pride, Raynor said, coughing. You always know how to make an exit. She almost smiled, but her face was serious. We cannot stay here. The council will track us soon. He looked around. Then where do we go? She pointed toward a faint light on the horizon, a hidden structure half buried under metal dust. There, an old Arken outpost. I can use it to send a signal. But we must hurry. They moved quickly through the ruins. The air smelled like rust and ozone. Strange machines lay scattered, half-dead giants of steel and wire. Every few minutes, thunder shook the ground. When they finally reached the outpost, Serath activated the door with her wrist crystal. The lights flickered to life. It was dark and empty, a forgotten station from another war. Raynor helped her sit down near a console. You're bleeding, he said quietly. It's only light, she replied, looking at the glowing blue line on her arm. Our kind doesn't bleed like yours. He knelt beside her. Still looks painful. She looked at him then, really looked at him. You care too easily, human. He smiled faintly. And you pretend not to care at all. Her lips curved slightly. Perhaps you are right. For a moment, silence filled the room. Just the sound of the storm outside, the hum of dying machines, and the unspoken truth between them. Then the console beeped. Serath's face turned tense. They found us. Raynor looked up. How many? She glanced at the display. Too many. The screen showed hundreds of red dots approaching fast. Drones, soldiers, hunters. Raynor grabbed a blaster from the wreckage. Then we fight. Serath stood beside him, drawing her glowing blade. You are a strange man, Raynor, he smirked. Takes one to know one. Outside, the sky lit up as alien ships descended. Energy blasts struck the ground, shaking the entire outpost. Metal walls cracked and dust rained down. The sound of footsteps echoed. Dozens of soldiers surrounding them. Serath looked at him one last time. If we fall, at least we fall free, Raynor nodded. Together. The door exploded open and the battle began. They fought side by side, moving as one, her blade a blur of light, his blaster firing through smoke and fire. Every step felt like the end and the beginning at the same time. The ground shook, sparks flew, and the air burned. But even the strongest fighters can only hold for so long. A blast hit the wall behind them, throwing Raynor to the ground. His weapon spun away. He looked up just as an enemy soldier aimed at him, and before he could react, Serath stepped in front of him, taking the hit. The beam struck her armor straight through the chest plate. She fell to her knees, the glow of her suit fading. Serath, Raynor shouted, catching her before she fell. Her eyes flickered faintly, her voice barely a whisper. I told you, not to worry, she said softly. He shook his head, panic in his voice. Stay with me. You saved me, I can't let you die now. She smiled weakly. You gave me something my people forgot a long time ago. He held her closer. What? Hope. The light in her armor dimmed completely. For a moment, everything went silent. Then her wrist crystal blinked faintly. One last signal. The outpost's defense system roared to life. Energy cannons rose from the ground, firing at the enemy ships above. The sky exploded in fire and lightning. Raynor shielded her body as the storm consumed everything. When it was over, the battlefield was empty. Only silence and drifting smoke remained. He looked down at her face, calm, peaceful, no longer afraid. He placed his hand on her armor. You weren't my enemy, he whispered. You were my reason to fight. Outside, the sky began to clear. The storm faded and sunlight broke through for the first time. Raynor stood slowly, carrying her toward the open door. The wind brushed his face as he looked up at the distant city glowing above the clouds. He whispered quietly to the sky, You'll never be forgotten, Commander. And somewhere in the ruins of the storm, a faint blue light shimmered once more, like a heartbeat that refused to die.